First of all, these sanctions are starting to bite, but they're hurting the Russian people. If I could describe it this way, is this going to stop Vladimir Putin's vanity project, it seems?
I'm glad you put it that way, because that's what it is, a vanity project. This is not, there is no, the Ukrainians have done nothing to provoke this war. This is pure aggression by Vladimir Putin to flex his muscles and try to show everybody how tough he is. Unfortunately, if we had done some of these sanctions before, and I don't mean the sanctions against the people, but the sanctions against the elite, if we had done that before he invaded, he would have seen that we were all united in the West. Vladimir Putin made a bet. His bet was he had done a lot of terrible things before. He invaded Georgia, no sanctions. Or no serious sanctions, I should say. He invaded Crimea, nothing much. He poisoned people in the UK, nothing. He shot down a passenger plane with 298 people on board, nothing. And so Vladimir Putin was banking on the fact that there would be nothing. And so if we had actually done some of this stuff before he invaded, he might not have invaded. But to answer your question, at this point, nothing can stop him. He's a total egomaniac. He can't show any signs of weakness. He can't back down. And so the only thing we can do at this point is completely contain him, to effectively wage an economic war, which is what we're doing, to try to destroy his economy, because he will not willingly back down.
Well, it is working to some extent. Some of his billionaire cronies are starting to isolate him and put pressure on him publicly. But the West is essentially trying to isolate Russia. Can that really be done when there's, tacit approval really from China and things like the OPEC Plus from the UAE?
Well, you're absolutely right. He has a safety valve with oil, and he's got a safety valve with China. But make no mistake, he's in a really bad place right now. All of the central bank reserves have effectively been frozen by Japan, by the United States, by the EU, by the UK. So he can't use this war chest that he's built up. All he's got is gold and rubles and Chinese currency, which is not a whole lot of money. He's all of the assets that are owned by the oligarchs are going to be frozen offshore, so he can't use that money. He's really, and he's burning money on an enormous basis fighting this war. It's costing him billions, if not tens of billions of dollars every week to run this war in Ukraine. And so he's going to quickly run out of money. And I think that's really our only hope, because his approach to this whole thing is one where he can't show any weakness.
Indeed, and he seems determined not to show any weakness, but perhaps he is surprised by the will of the Ukrainian president and his people. Let me talk to you about sanctions just quickly, because there are Russian billionaires who enjoy their super yachts off the coast of France, off the coast of Spain. They have their Mayfair apartments or their New York apartments. Are these sanctions starting to hurt them directly?
Well, it's all happening like in real time as we speak right now. And so, for example, one of the biggest oligarchs, Roman Abramovich, who hasn't yet been sanctioned, tried to transfer his football team, the Chelsea, out of his name into some charity in a way of apparently to try to protect it from being sanctioned. And then you have all sorts of people. The private jets can't fly into Europe anymore. The yachts are being tracked and traced. The British Foreign Secretary is talking about seizing the mansions and properties in London. It's all starting. It's all happening as we speak. It's happening in real time. Let's see how far it goes. But I can tell you one thing, that it wouldn't be very pleasant to be a Russian oligarch right now, wondering if any of the money you've accumulated over the years you'll get to keep.
And what happens with these oligarchs' money? Do they keep some money in places like Russia? Do they keep it in Swiss banks? Do they keep it in Monaco? Do they protect themselves in that way? And when it comes to people like Roman Abramovich, he's not been personally sanctioned yet. Does this kind of highlight that Russian money is so ingrained in British society, for example, that perhaps it hurts Britain to sanction people like Roman?
Well, first of all, you mentioned Monaco and Switzerland. Yes, they do keep their money in Monaco and Switzerland. And both those countries, as of today, have agreed to impose the same sanctions as the EU. So Those are not safe bolt holes.
Right.
And then as far as Britain goes and the oligarchs, you're absolutely right. For the last 20 years, Britain welcomed these people with open arms, no questions asked. They came here, got golden visas, got passports, bought huge properties, keep all their money here, keep their families here. And it's been a shameful history. And in a certain way, though, it now creates a big advantage for the UK, because if they want to get tough, they can punch way above their weight by seizing all these assets. And that's yet to be seen whether they will or they won't. But the threat is out there. The statements are out there. The laws are being introduced in Parliament just now. I just saw the draft law a few minutes ago. So it's all happening. And it in theory, could strike a devastating blow to Putin's, I call this Putin's money, because a lot of these oligarchs look after Putin's money to his personal wealth.
Extraordinary. Let's talk quickly about the Magnitsky Act. Australia passed this act just last year. Many other countries have done it in the years before. Without this act, do you think these sanctions, as tough as they are today, would have happened?
Absolutely not. The Magnitsky Act was the basis for which all of the sanctions that are happening today are happening. This was the template, the formula, and the way in which governments have now learned to react to atrocities in Russia and other places. The Magnitsky Act is not just used with Russia, it's used with China, it's used with Myanmar, it's used with Venezuela and all sorts of other places. It's sort of like the modern day cancer drug. Instead of going after the whole society, you just target the cancer cells, the bad actors. And in Russia, we could have used the Magnitsky Act before the invasion, and we might not have had to ruin life for the average Russian. But in the West, there was just not enough consensus to do that, and so here we are.
Indeed. I have so many more questions for you, Bill Browder, but there's never enough time. We really appreciate you taking us through that this morning. And I've got to say, congratulations. This is what your campaigning has done, and it has paid off so far.